We're live. Yes. Greetings, everyone. My name is Luke. Welcome to the 9,000th live lesson with me, your host, Luke Priddy. Today we're going to be learning some English. We're going to be talking about lots of things. We're going to be focusing on memes, talking about British English versus American English. We'll be talking about how to learn words, specifically word lists, and I'll be answering questions. If you're watching this later and you missed the live stream, that's okay. You can catch the next one. No problem. We'll be doing these every Sunday, so make sure you join. I live in New York, so I do it generally in the early afternoon. So it's now 2 p.m. So that's generally the time frame. So if you want to ask questions, you can join every week. And sometimes I go out to do stuff, but not always. And I think I might next week go to the Brooklyn Bridge, but maybe not. I'm not sure yet. It depends. So make sure before we start our discussion, before we start our lesson, that you hit like if you have the chance. That lets other people know that there's a live lesson going on. So that's very appreciated if you can do that. And also subscribe. It's if you want to see future videos, then you could subscribe to the channel, and then you'll see future videos. And also, there are courses in the link in the description. So if you're interested in, for example, learning English for 15 hours with me, check out those courses, either on Skillshare or Udemy. Hey, everybody. I see we have some people here. Usually we only say good night to say goodbye. When we say hello, we say good evening. So we can say good evening. We're going to spend a little time kind of just waiting for some more people to get in, and then we're going to start the lesson. I have some topics prepared, specifically 3 things I want to talk about, which are in the title. And then I will be answering your questions as well. All right? So feel free to ask your questions. If I don't answer them right away, maybe that's because I'm talking about a topic and I don't want to break it up. So I'll finish talking about that and then go back to the comments and hopefully go back and review your questions. I try to answer, if I can, every single question that you guys ask during the live stream. If I can. It's not always possible, but I'll do my best. I will do my best. Now, if you want to ask a question, there is a chance that I will be popping them up onto the screen. So that means be careful about your spelling. So for example, Alan says hello from Mexico. I might do this. Okay, and I might put Alan's comment up there, and that might be a question I might pop up on the screen. So if you do have a question, that's great. But just do your best to spell it correctly so that when your name is on the screen, right, you want it to be reasonably correct. I cannot vouch for it, you know. I could correct it if you want me to, but actually Alan's here is perfect. He says, "Hello, greetings from Mexico." There's nothing wrong with that. It's perfect. Perfect. I don't know if I should where should I put it? Maybe here? Is here better? Down here? I don't know. All right. Hello, Bella. Hello, Yarmila. Hey, Yarmila is from the Czech Republic. Well, we have someone from Mexico, Czech Republic, Morocco, and San Francisco all watching at the same time. Isn't that crazy? Isn't the internet magical and amazing? All right. I'm going to run the intro, and then we'll get started. And guys, again, questions, please, and I will definitely get to them. So let's run the intro first and foremost. Okay. All right. So we're going to start with something that was asked earlier in the week. Now, I actually prepare topics. And today I have 3 that I'd like to share with you. And This one comes from someone who left the question on YouTube under one of the videos or somewhere. I can't remember. Question from Israel. And I think it's a very interesting question because it covers some of the important things about learning vocabulary, something that I think we should all kind of be aware of. Okay, so let's start with that. This is pretty simple, but I think also really useful for everybody to know. And I want to say, not everybody learns in the same way, so if something doesn't quite agree with your learning style, ask me about it, and we can talk about it, because people do learn differently. So Israel's question is, are word lists useful? For example, there might be a list online of the 5,000 most common words, or the 5,000 most frequent words. It's often between 3,000 and 5,000. Okay. Is this useful for me? Should I be learning these? Should I be looking at these lists that are online? And there are many of them. Vocabulary.com has one. Oxford something has one. I'm not even sure what it's called. There are so many. There are books that have them. And I'm not saying they're bad exactly. I'm not saying they're great exactly either. And I want to talk about what could be useful about them and what isn't so useful about them. Sort of the pros and cons of learning from these gigantic word lists. Now, of course, you can learn any way that you want, but this is just what I've seen work for students. I've been teaching for now over 8 years. This is what I've seen work for students in the last 8 years. Okay. I've had students using these lists, but you have to use them in the right way. So let's talk about the pros and cons first. The pros and cons of learning giant vocabulary lists, especially lists like the 5,000 most frequent English words. All right, so something like this would be the pros. Which words are common? And that's what you really want to know. If you see a list of 5,000 most common words, then at least you know that these words are words that people use regularly. One of the difficulties of learning English is you might learn a word and say, all right, well, I know the word now, but do people use it? What if it's a word like seldom, which everybody learns, and then you find out only grandmas use it, right? I never use that word. It's not a common word in the English language anymore. So you have to be careful, right? And so these lists can at least give you a sense for which ones are very high frequency. So that's a good thing, right? That's something that's good. That's a pro. That's a positive thing about it, right? So that's there's nothing wrong with that. Now we can also use this to sort of increase the word sphere. So let me explain what I mean by word sphere. This is your awareness of the language, your awareness of words. Some people like to burn through these lists. Some people like to learn 20 words a day, 30 words a day. Now, I'm not recommending that, right? But for those people who are learning 20 words, 30 words a day, maybe translating them into your language, memorizing them by either flashcards or repetition or whatever, then when you hear those words in the future, or when you read them in a book, or when they're just out there, you at least recognize them and say, oh, I heard that somewhere. Now, the problem here is that you probably don't know how to use it immediately, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But at least you're aware of it. So when I say the word sphere, it's sort of your awareness of the words in the language, your awareness of words. So that's good, right? And if you know the meaning, if you looked up the meaning in the dictionary or even translated it into your language when you were memorizing 50 words a day or 20 words a day or whatever, at least when you hear it, you say, yes, I heard it, I heard that. So, okay, there's nothing wrong with that. That can be good. But again, doesn't mean that you can use it. We can also, for some of these, really learn the pronunciation very well. Now, there are some lists that have an audio recording next to the actual word. So if you're going to learn from word lists, at least do yourself the favor of listening to the sound of the word. Now, Don't read the phonetic symbols that tell you the pronunciation. No, don't do that. Please, I'm begging you, don't do that. It's not good. It's bad. It's counterproductive. What you should do is read the word, make sure you understand it, right? Maybe repeat it, listen to the sound. If there's an audio file, find a list that has the audio, click on it, listen to it several times. American pronunciation, British pronunciation, American pronunciation, British pronunciation. Say it several times until you feel like you have the pronunciation. Okay, so now you're increasing your word sphere and you're increasing your ability to say sounds correctly because you're imitating the sound of the audio that you're playing. All right, there's nothing wrong with that. That's good. The other two are very similar. One is it's effective for flashcards. So if you like to learn at a high pace, a rapid pace, like a PhD student preparing for a major examination or something like that, then word lists are good if you're doing the flashcard thing where you write the meaning on one side and you write the word you're trying to remember or maybe the phrase you're trying to remember, whatever it is, on the other, and then you either look at them yourself and then say the meaning, or you look at the meaning and you say the word, either side, and go through them regularly, and every time you shuffle them so that they're in a different order because you don't want to memorize the order because that doesn't help. That definitely doesn't help. You want it to be random. Or you have a friend help you. And there is software for this too. There's something called Anki, the Anki system. It's proven to be an effective way to memorize. So if you want to memorize, doing these lists is a way to say, okay, got that one, check, got that one, check, got that one, check, got that one, check. All right, good. So if you want to learn high-frequency words, the lists are good for building flashcards or using something like Anki. Also good if you use something called the Mind Palace technique. Now you can look that up, but I do want to share something about that maybe in another video or another lesson. But basically, it's the idea of placing words in a map in your brain and remembering them in that way. It's pretty interesting, but it's very different from flashcards. It can be very effective, okay? So those are the good things. What about the bad things? We got to talk about those. What are the bad things about learning English in lists? I think there are quite a few. So one is that when you look at words in a list, there's really no context. How is the word being used? How do I actually put it into a sentence? That's a big problem because if I learn a word, but I have no idea how to use it myself, what can I do with it other than when I hear it say, oh, I know that word, yeah, right? What can I do with it? But if I've learned it in a sentence, I've read it in a book in a sentence, and I see, oh, it's used in this way. And here's another sentence where it's used in this way. Oh, cool. I understand it. And maybe I make a few of my own sentences. This is how to learn words. But that's not learning words in a list, right? So learning words in a list can be bad for context, especially if you're learning words so that you can use them in conversation. I don't recommend using lists. I recommend reading books, writing down practice sentences, looking up words that you hear in conversations or at work. Oh, what's that word? Write that down. Make your own list, maybe, of words, but remember the situation you found them in. Or if it's from a book, look at the sentence you found it in, then make your own examples, look it up in the dictionary, in English dictionary, find more examples, and deeply, deeply understand it. That's how you can do it. That's a better way to learn deeply how to use words. And the other thing is very closely related to that, which is we talked about in a previous live class the word light, right? The word light has so many different meanings. If you're learning that word, which one is it, right? So then there's the issue of learning 500 different meanings of a word, right? Which one is it? And if you're learning from a list, that definitely makes it much, much harder to do, right? The other thing is for these 5,000 word lists, these top 5,000 most frequent words, you already know most of them. Really, you probably learned them in middle school. Most of you watching this, if you understand what I'm saying, if you can understand most of what I say, you probably already know 5,000 words at least. You might know 8,000 words. You might know 10,000 words. You probably know more than you think you know. So for these 5,000 word lists, they're kind of for beginners, like basic beginners. So are they that great? I would say maybe find a list where you don't know most of them. If you can find that kind of list and that's useful, okay. But yeah, most of these lists will not be actually words you don't know. You'll probably already know most of them. That's why I suggest if you're going to make lists, make your own lists. Build your own lists from your daily life. You hear a new word. I heard a new word in Luke's live class. He said the word rambunctious. What is that, rambunctious? I have to figure out how to spell it. Rambunctious. Look it up, make that your list. Make your own lists. If you are able to understand everything I say, you should be at the stage where you're not looking at someone else's list of 5,000 words, but you're creating your own list of 5,000 words. That's what I think. Now, when you're learning these from a list, like we said, are you actually going to put them into practice? Are these words that you're learning things that you will actually use? In my opinion, the best thing to do is only learn words that you're going to actually use. Learn words that you plan to use, that you have a use for. Right? If you learn the word rambunctious, but it's not the type of word that you would use, don't learn it. Spend your time and energy learning another word that's more useful to you. Okay? And these lists are trying to tell you what words you should learn. Do you really want that? Maybe not. Next and last, and this is something that I think is most important, so I just want to focus on it finally. You have to know yourself deeply, right? This is why I'm saying make your own lists. You have to know what is right for you. You have to know what is the next step in your English learning journey. You have to know which things are difficult for you and which are easy for you. And so you have to create your own path for yourself in your English learning journey. And if you let other people or other books with huge lists define your path for you, you're going to get lazy and you're going to say, "Oh, just follow this program or follow that program." That is wasting your time, probably, right? You're wasting time doing something that isn't helping you, or doing something that you already know, or doing something that just makes you feel comfortable, right? Learning these lists, it's so fun. I'm learning a lot. I learned 25 words today. Yeah. But are you really challenging yourself? Are you really pushing yourself? Are those 25 words really the right words for you? But if you decide which words to learn because you know what your goals are and you know where you're going and you know what you need to use, you're creating your own path. It's more of a struggle, but you will improve much faster. And that is how it works, okay? So lists, not bad, not good, kind of bad. It depends on where you are in your journey, all right? Hopefully that's useful. Make sure if you haven't already, guys, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit the subscribe button as well. And also, the links in the description are full courses, pronunciation and thinking in English and all that stuff. So check out those as well. And let me know if you have any questions in the comments. All right. So I'm going to just go through and see if I missed anything. Guys, do you have any questions about the word lists? There's this... oh, I missed a lot of things. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. All right, let me catch up here. We have people from so many countries here. It's crazy. English is an international language, and the internet is an amazing tool for connecting the world. I agree with that, Alan. So true, so true, so true. Whoa, whoa, whoa! That expanded quickly. I'm going to put this down here. Maybe there's actually room for these comments. 100%. How to pronounce words ending with and other words starting with S, for example. Very good question. So Kareem asks a pretty interesting one. Words ending with S and starting with S, but they don't have to end with S and start with S. There's no rule about words that start with S and end with S. There's no connection there. A lot of words which end with just an S and have something like a G before the S, right? Or maybe something like HOLES. It has just an S at the end. Often the end will be a Z sound, not an S sound. Not always, of course, right? But often it will be a Z sound instead of an S sound. So, for example, HOLES, holes, holes. There's a Z sound there, right? Right? FUMES, 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 Z sound. So S can make a Z sound. How about SONGS, 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 z. Okay, at the end of the word, the S is more often a Z sound. But at the beginning of a word, it's often not a Z sound. At the beginning of the word, there are very few cases where the S makes a Z sound. Most often, when you see an S at the beginning of a word, it's going to be the simple S sound, the simple S sound. So if you see sandwiches or songs or smiles, notice smiles also, SMILES, the S at the end is a Z and the S at the beginning is a S, okay? Usually the beginning, S, the end, Z. There are exceptions, but that is generally the case, yeah. But don't make the connection between those two. We can't say, oh, there's a rule about words that start and end with S. No, there is no rule that says a word that starts with S and ends with S should follow any sort of pattern. Doesn't work like that. But that's a good question. Okay. Let's see. How long time do you learn English? Oh, I don't think that's for me. I'm an English speaker, so I've been learning English for 31 years. 31 long, hard years. Time has not been kind to me. And Yarmila has been learning English for 7 months. That's not very long. Okay. Let's see if I missed anything here. Hannah says, this is exactly what I'm doing. I make my own list, which contain a lot of daily words. Yes, make your own lists. Build your own list. That's a much better way to do it. Karina says, hello from Spain. Hello, Karina. Rolfie and Lolly Lolly are always saying hello to each other. I think they're friends in real life, maybe. Do you guys both live in France? Wait a second. Do you guys live in the same building or something? And Rolfie's downstairs and Lolly Lolly lives upstairs? Is that how it works? You guys are neighbors, aren't you? Hello from Michigan. Michigan? I'm not sure if we can have people from Michigan here. Whatever. I'm from Ohio. Ohio is one state under Michigan. Right below Michigan is Ohio. I think after the vowels at the end of the word, we pronounce it as Z sound. Again, we can't say that as a rule. We cannot say that as a rule. That's often true. It is often true. But look at the example that we had earlier. SONGS. G is not a vowel. G is a consonant, right? That's songs. Songs. So can't say that that's a rule. Although, yes, it is often true. It is often true. With pronunciation, here's the problem. And I've taught pronunciation a lot, and I talk about pronunciation a lot. There are a lot of little interesting common things that you see. Like, oh, this is common. Like if you have the vowel, especially a silent E and then S, you often get that Z sound. But you will always find exceptions to every single rule. Almost every single rule has some kind of exceptions. And so it's good to notice those things and see them when you see them and use them as a general guideline, as a general framework. But don't let them tell yourself, it must always be this way. That's not right. That's not true. Milton, you're going to have to be a little more specific with that question, because if you say, I'm confused with the, that's a big topic, buddy, old pal. You have to be a little more specific. Can you be a little more specific with that? Jahida says, I feel sleepy. It's almost midnight, but I don't want to miss your class. You know what, Jahida? If you go to bed, I won't feel bad, because if you have to work tomorrow, then that would be bad if you were sleepy and made mistakes tomorrow because you stayed here. So, it's okay to go to bed, absolutely. And you can watch the playback tomorrow, right? It'll be a morning thing. You can do it while you eat breakfast. Also, I sometimes take clips out from the live streams and post them on a separate channel. So check that out too. Yeah, you guys are welcome to subscribe to the other channel. So there's another channel. If you look on the Cloud English main site, there's one on the right that says something like, I don't even know what the channel's called. English Lessons by Cloud English. And it's basically clips from the live streams, so that if you guys don't have time to watch the whole live stream, at least you can see a clip from it, right? You can say, oh, I want to watch this part, this answer to this question. I try to cut out most of the answers to most of the questions. So you can subscribe to that channel. When to use the word though? Of course, every rule there is an exception. Absolutely. Milton says, Luke, I'm often confused with the. Is there any way to easily fix the problem? It's just not very specific. All right, let's do our best to answer Milton's question, all right? Let's do our best. I don't know how this is going to go, but let's try. Let's just try. Hold on a second. I'm just going to pull up something. I have examples for everything, guys. All right. And Milton, if I don't answer your question well to your satisfaction, let me know. All right? Let me know. Here we go. Here we go. Okay, so Milton says, Luke, I'm often confused with the. Is there any way to fix my problem? Now, I think a lot of people get confused with the word the. But we first have to, I think, know what the problems are, the common mistakes with the word the. How do people incorrectly use the word the, right? What are the typical the mistakes? The ones that I've noticed are when people use the to talk about specific things when there's only one of that kind of thing. And usually the usage of the is to talk about specific things if there are many of that kind of thing. Now maybe that's not so clear. So let me try to give the examples. Let me give some mistakes, and then we'll talk about how this works, okay? So, Manhattan, okay? Most of you guys know Manhattan. Manhattan is one of the boroughs or districts in New York City where I live. Now, if Milton comes to visit me in New York City, he might say, hey, Luke, why don't we go to the Manhattan? Why don't we go to the Manhattan? Now, is this correct if he says this? Is it correct? No, it's not. Because there's only one Manhattan. And at least one Manhattan that we're talking about here, right? There might be a Manhattan Street in some state somewhere, but generally speaking, there's one famous Manhattan that we're talking about, okay? There is one Manhattan. And so he should say, let's go to Manhattan, the name of a place. If we talk about countries, we might say, I just visited China. We wouldn't say the China, because there's only one China. Now again, there might be some place called China Village somewhere, but when we say I'm going to China, people know what that means. We say there's only one of that kind of thing, okay? So we don't use the for these things. Now you might say, okay, wait a second. What about the moon? The moon, we say the moon, right? The one that goes around the earth. There's only one of those. Well, actually, it is It is a moon, and it's our moon. So when we want to talk about our moon, and there are many moons, Mars has 2 or 3 moons, and Jupiter has a bunch of moons, right? So we say the moon when we're talking about the moon that we go to. So this goes to the other way that we use the. We use the when we want to talk about a specific thing of which there are many. There are many of this kind of thing, and we want to say exactly which one. So the moon would be one example, but if there are some things on the counter, right? And one of those things is a pen, okay? And I want that pen there on the counter, then I will say, can you give me the pen? Can you give me the pen? Now, of course, we could say, could you give me that pen? But we could say, could you give me the pen? There are many pens, right? There are many pens in the world. There's not only one, but I want the pen. The pen. I'm talking about a certain pen. A certain pen. So when we say things like the day before yesterday, we're talking about a specific day. A specific day. I think it was the third day of my trip. A specific day of my trip. The third day of my trip. Okay? There are so many examples like this. We could say, for example, I'm going to go to the DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles. That's where you get your driver's license, okay? Now, you might say, okay, well, yeah, but there's only one in our city. All right, but it's the one we go to. It's the one we talk about. Maybe every city has a DMV or a BMV, right? And so there are many of those kinds of things. We're talking about one. We also stretch it out to things that are ours, that belong to us. Like if I say, I'm going to the gym. I'm going to the gym. Usually people don't go to a different gym every time. So we often say things, you'll hear people say things like, I'm going to the bank, I'm going to the gym, I'm going to the library, I'm going to the office, because typically each person only goes to one of those. Most people don't go to multiple offices to work. Most people don't go to many different banks. Now, that's kind of flexible, right? A little more flexible, but you get the idea. It's the same basic idea. I'm talking about a specific one, okay? Now, hopefully that's clear. If we want to talk about China, we say, I visited China. If we want to talk about Manhattan, we say, go to Manhattan. No the. We use the for specific things. What about or an? So the is a definite article. Talking about a specific thing. This kind of word is called an article, and an indefinite article would be an and Now we use an if we're talking about something that starts with, or rather a word that starts with a consonant sound, and then before that we use an. So for example, wait a second. No, sorry. I said that the wrong way. Let me correct myself. If a word starts with a vowel sound, we use n in front of it. If a word starts with a consonant sound, we use in front of it. 对. So we would say, for example, an apple, right? An apple. Not the apple, an apple. What's the difference? We'll talk about that in 1 second. What about Well, we might say, for example, a dinosaur, a horse. What about an hour? Because the word hour, H-O-U-R, starts with an H. Don't focus on the letter, focus on the sound, because the word hour starts with a vowel sound. Ah, ah, ah. So it's the sound, not the letter. Yes, it starts with an H, but it's a vowel sound. H-O-U-R has the same pronunciation of O-U-R. Okay, so we would say an hour, an hour. All right. Now, what about the difference between the indefinite article, a, and the definite article, the, or the? Well, the basic idea is, I don't care which one. Give me a pen. Can you give me a pen? Maybe there are 3 pens, and I don't care which one it is. Doesn't matter to me. Doesn't matter to me. Is there a bank nearby? Is there a bank? Do you know if there's a bank nearby? Excuse me, sir. Do you know if there's a bank nearby? Oh, yeah, there's a bank 3 blocks that way and 1 block over. A bank. I don't care which bank it is. I just need to go to the ATM. I'm trying to find a good gym. I'm trying to find a good gym. I don't have a gym. I want to go to a good one. I don't care which one it is. Just give me some advice. Which one? I don't care. I don't care. Okay? All right. I've never been to a place like that before. I've never been to a place like that before. A place like that. Well, when we talk about a place, that could be any place. Now, we are talking about a specific place, but we could change that around, right? Depending on our opinion. So basically, when it doesn't matter which one we're talking about, we focus on or an. And when we want to say specifically, we use the. And if it's something that has a name and there's only one, then we should use neither or neither. All right? That's the idea. Hopefully that's clear. If this is not clear, let me know in the comments. Guys, by the way, don't forget to hit the like button. Subscribe also. And if you haven't already, check out my courses in the links in the description. All right. All right, so I want to make sure I've answered your question. Milton, does that cover it? Does that cover it? Does that cover your question? Where's Milton? Milton, I need to know if I answered your question. Hey, Israel, sorry I already answered your question and you might have missed it. Ha, sorry. I'm desperate for Milton's approval. Okay, my friend say herself, I'm no spring chicken. I think that was, say, it's negative. No spring chicken is just an expression, Xiaoli, which means I'm not a young person anymore. We're no spring chickens anymore. Means we're getting old. What's the meaning of the expression? That's beside the point. Could you please make some examples? Yes, I will do that. That's what I'll talk about in a second. Give me a second, Rolfie. Give me a second, Rolfie. Hannah says, if you want to speak about something in specific, use the. Hannah is right. Do you think B1 level is good enough to talk with a native English speaker? Guys, that is the wrong way to think. Every level is good enough to talk with a native speaker. At least you can talk to me. I mean, I have friends who like to talk to me in English who speak very little English. I have a chat every week with one friend. He has very low English, and we talk about all kinds of stuff, and it's very interesting. When I met my wife, she could speak almost no English. So don't say, oh, I can't speak with native English speakers until my English is good enough, until I'm at this level. That's ridiculous. You need to jump in right away. Try. You'll find a native English speaker who's interested in talking with you, and they are willing to try to understand you. Maybe you can teach them some of your own language, maybe some words that they didn't know. Don't be like that. Don't be like that. Got to jump into it. What's your advice to speak flawless English without thinking about pronunciation and accent? The key to that, Kareem, is actually, it's a very good question. The key to that is to get it down so much that it's 100% in the habit category. So there's this concept called bandwidth, where only so much information can travel through a cable, right? Well, imagine you have bandwidth, which is your ability to concentrate on different things. When you're speaking your language, all you think about is your meaning, what you mean to say, right? What you want to say. That's all you have to think about. Because you're born into your language, so it just flows out of your mouth hole naturally, right? You don't think about it. However, when you learn another language, let's say English, and it's your second language, your bandwidth is being taken up by considerations of all of the different aspects of speaking English. What am I going to say? How am I going to put the sentences together? Which means, which words should I use? And what grammar do I need? Because if I'm talking about the past, I have to change the tense, right? All of that stuff. And then I have to think about maybe pronunciation and how I can say the words correctly so I don't say something the wrong way so that I'm not misunderstood, right? And all of that stuff together creates a block almost. There's too much going on, too much to pay attention to. So this increases mistakes. So when it comes to pronunciation, this is where you focus on repetition, practicing and practicing and practicing sounds, sentences, and specific pieces of words until you don't think about it anymore. Just like when you learn to play tennis or something, the tennis player is not saying, all right, now tilt hand 90 degrees to the right and lift arm up 2 centimeters. They don't think about that. They've practiced since they were 12 years old. They practice every day. And so they're focused on a strategy of hitting the ball to the right place on the court and how to tire out their opponent. They're focused on these higher level things, right? Can you imagine if I were trying to do this class and I were thinking about all those things? It would be a mess, right? You wouldn't be able to understand what I was talking about. I certainly wouldn't be able to answer your question. So with pronunciation, you have to sort of make it a thing that you repeat until that goes from the bandwidth category into the habit category. And that is repetition, 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 repetition. You have to make sure the repetition is the right repetition, though. That's the difficulty. That's why I hate phonetic syllables and phonetic symbols, because the reason I hate phonetic symbols is that they mislead you in pronunciation. So you've got to develop your ear. Then you have to repeat 1 billion times until you can match your sound to that thing that you hear, until your ear is very sharp, and then you can hear yourself say that correctly. There's a little loop going on there. I said it correctly because I heard myself say it correctly because it matches the thing that I learned. Ha-ha. And then over time, that becomes a habit, and it's one less thing that you have to think about when you are speaking. Then you can focus on putting the sentences together. And then grammar becomes a habit, and you no longer have to think about using the past tense because you just automatically do it, right? So that's the key. You want to get to the point where everything about your English moves into the habit category by developing your awareness, your self-awareness, your ability to notice when you've said something incorrectly, when your sound is off. You have to notice it in yourself when you say it, to hear yourself say it, and then repeat it until it's a habit. Then all you have to think about is, how do I say what I want to say? What do I want to say? How can I make an interesting point? How can I explain something clearly? That's all, so that it gets much, much, much easier. And you will find among English learners who speak very, very well, they have done that. They even dream in English. So that's the idea. The second word, make the second word follow in the limits. For example, the book. I already know which book I talked about. I like that. That's a good way to say it. I already know. We talked about the book before, and I say, the book. Well, we referenced it already. It's in the category. You said it better than I could say it. You should be teaching this class. Do you use the expression "excuse me" or "pardon my French" before you swear? Nope, I just swear. Some people do say, "Pardon my French." Pardon my French. I don't say it, but some people do say it. Some people say, "Excuse my language." I don't say that either. I just say it if I want to say it. Why should I apologize for using bad words? A and come to speak about a single thing, and in general, not specific, which means it's the opposite of the, kind of the opposite, in the sense that it's an indefinite article, in the sense that it doesn't matter which pen it is that you give me. I don't care, the red one, the black one, the pink one, doesn't matter. Israel, what's the difference between staircase, and ladder? Maybe we can talk about that later. Can you pronounce exactly for me? I have trouble pronouncing that word. Jihada. It is jihadi. Jahidi. Jahida. Jahida. Exactly. The fun way to learn to pronounce this one is to say the word eggs, as in the food, eggs. And then act, as in an actor. And then Lee, as in the name Lee. Eggs, act, Lee. And then you put it all together. Exactly. Eggs, act, Lee. Exactly. 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 That's how you remember it. Eggs, act, Lee. If the word started by vowels, I think Hana is just summarizing my explanation. Yuri says, hello, Luke. What's the difference between I'm up for that and I'm down for that? I talked about this in another lesson. I'm up for it means I'm willing to do that. I'm up for that. I'm down for that means I'm willing to do that. They mean the same thing. But we would refuse differently. So if someone says, all right, well, let me think about this for a second. All right, let's put this one up for a second. Basically, if someone says, I'm up for that, they're saying that they're willing to do something. They would like to do something. They've been invited to do something. Hey, do you want to grab a slice of pizza tonight? Maybe a beer? Yeah, I'm up for that. I'm up for that, right? Or you might say, I'm down for that. I would be down for a slice. In New York, we say down for a slice because in New York, we don't eat whole pizzas. We eat slices of pizza. Hey, do you want to go grab a slice and a beer later tonight? Sound like an old man. Yeah, I'm down for that. I'm down for that. Or I'd be down for that. Okay, so when we accept, we say, yeah, sure, okay, fine, sounds good. I'm up for that. I'm down for that. All right. Well, yeah, I guess so, if we're not that excited about it. But then, when we want to refuse, we can't use these the same way. We usually would not say, I'm not down for that. I'm not down for that. That is not something that you hear. But you will hear people say, I'm not really feeling up to it. Hey, you ready to go? Get a slice and a beer? You know what? I wanted to go earlier today, but I'm just feeling a little under the weather, which means not very well. I'm just feeling a little under the weather today. I'm not really up for it. Or I'm not really up to it. So you hear people say either up for it or up to it. I'm not really up for it. I'm not really up to it today. Maybe tomorrow. But you won't hear people say, I'm not really down for that. I'm not down to it. No, that is strange. Other ways to say no thanks would be something like no thanks and no thanks. But that might be a little too direct. You might say, I don't really feel like it today. I don't really feel like it today. Or I'm not really in the mood. I'm not really in the mood. I'm not really in the mood. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow. Okay. Or, maybe next time. Sometimes we just say, maybe next time. And that's it. And then maybe we can reschedule. Maybe we can do it another time. Maybe we're very good friends and it doesn't matter. And my friend will go anyway, right? Doesn't matter. So that's fine too. So when we're refusing like this, it's just important to remember that it's casual, okay? These are things that we say to friends, to people we know well, generally. And if it's a more formal situation, then we might say, unfortunately, I'm going to have to cancel our appointment or cancel our meetup or whatever it is. Sorry. Or I hope it's not an inconvenience, but I need to do a rain check on our appointment, on our dinner date or whatever it is. A rain check is when we're going to schedule it for later. Rain check? We sometimes say rain check as a question to say, can we schedule it for later for whatever reason? Okay, so that's generally how we use up for it, down for it, and those are some other ways that we can refuse a request, something that someone has asked us to do casually. All right, good question though. Good question. Before concert and before... What have I missed here? My teacher suggested me to learn British accent, although I love the American accent. Then I started to learn British accent. Which accent do you like? I'm biased, right? I mean, I am an American. I like the British accent. I think the British accent sounds cool, to be honest. Sometimes the American accent sounds cool, but sometimes it's annoying. There are some things about American English that bother me that I talked about in the last live class. Overusing like, I'm like, oh my God, like, I'm like. That sort of American English really annoys me. I can't stand it. Like, did you see like, oh my God, like what, like? It sounds like birds fighting over breadcrumbs to me. It bothers me. I don't mean to be negative. British English, generally speaking, sounds a little bit more well-educated sometimes. And so I do like the sound of it. We're going to talk in a moment. The next thing I want to talk about is British spelling versus American spelling. There are differences there too. So we'll talk about that in just a second. I just want to make sure I answer any other questions here. Learn the accent you're going to use most and be a kind of chameleon, be able to recognize and understand each of them. I think that's also good advice. I mean, don't say, all right, I'm going to learn American English and then try to copy the American sound. I think that's a little strange. In fact, if you try to copy the American sound or copy the British sound, there's nothing worse than someone who's faking a British accent and it's obvious. It's like, it's a little awkward. Or faking an American accent and it's not an American accent. Sounds a little weird. Is it right to copy that sound exactly or to get close to it so that it just sounds natural, but also you still have some of your own accent there, which identifies you, right? Like, for example, someone from Singapore who speaks English really well. I know they're from Singapore because I can hear that they're from Singapore, but also they have very, very good English. What's wrong with that? Why should they develop an American accent or a British accent, right? Unless they really, really understand it because they maybe went to school in England for 10 years. And it happens naturally. My point is really, I wouldn't force it. Don't try to force it. Don't take on a fake sound, a fake American accent, and try to put that on top of your own accent because it's going to sound unnatural and strange. If it happens naturally, let it happen. But as Dennis says, be a chameleon and float around in the language and let it sort of soak into your skin a little bit. Absorb it. All right. Could you explain the slang Holmes? Anderson says. Do you use it in New York? I, Anderson, am unfamiliar with that slang. Holmes, Holmes. I mean, I know Sherlock Holmes, the famous detective, but I'm unfamiliar with a slang Holmes. Interesting. Xiaoli says, could you please repeat that? You said, learn English, jump right. Jump right. I think I meant to say you want to jump into the language and swim around and sort of float around in it. And if it happens that your accent becomes a little more British sounding or a little more American sounding, great. My point was, don't force anything, right? I'm going to say, with a southern pronunciation, y'all. I'm going to start saying y'all instead of you guys, for example. It might be a little weird to start doing that. Maybe. Just try to be natural is my main point. Okay. If I missed any questions, let me know, guys. I'm gonna talk about something. All right. So I have another thing prepared for today that I want to share with you, which is actually there are two more things. At the end of the lesson, we're going to talk about memes, which I'm very excited about. I'm very excited to talk about memes. So stick around for the end of the lesson because there is something that I'm very excited to share with you. But before we get into that, we definitely need to talk about spelling. Now, this is basic stuff. This is interesting. It's interesting. Did you know that British English and American English are not the same? Probably you do know that. Now, the differences are several. Obviously, there's the pronunciation difference, right? British people pronounce words a lot differently than Americans do. Not every single word, but many words, right? Now, also, there are differences in actual words used. For example, Americans may say apartment, whereas British people may often more say flat. Or maybe an American will say, oh, let's get in line for the tickets. And a British person might say, let's queue up. Or let's queue for the tickets. Okay, so there are differences in words. Well, did you also know that there are differences in spelling, that the way words are spelled in America and England are actually different. Yeah, it's true. It's true. And I think we should talk about some of those differences because they're not just random differences. There are a lot of common patterns, bits of words that are similar, and we can look at those. Okay, so first we should talk about kind of why it might be useful to know this. It's useful to know to expand your language horizons, okay? American English comes from British English, okay? British English is England, the language of England. And that's where all English started. But then it started spreading around the world as England began to spread around the world and start colonies around the world, right? In India, in Asia, Hong Kong, for example. And the 13 colonies, which is now part of the United States, right? For a long time, the United States was under British rule. And so English was the spoken language because people in the New World or the 13 colonies said to themselves, I'm British. I'm a British citizen. I am a subject of the crown. That means I'm under the King of England. Okay? That was the reality. Americans were not Americans. They considered themselves to be British citizens. All right, so that's it. That's why we speak English in America. Same goes for Canada, right? In a lot of places around the world. Same goes for Australia. I mean, every history is a little different. But, as we've said, there are differences, and over time those differences can really become obvious, especially when we're talking about things like pronunciation and spelling. The trend in American English has been to simplify. Often the words we use rather than British English are simpler. We say truck for everything, whereas in England they'll say lorry sometimes and truck for others. Okay? We say truck. We simplify a little bit. Same goes with spelling. We cut down the number of letters often. We cut them down. We reduce them because we think, oh, it's simpler. Right? I don't know exactly who did it, who made the decisions, but over time there has been this trend. Now, maybe it's because I'm an American. I tend to agree with a lot of the changes because I think simplifying is better, generally speaking. I like the spelling of American English. You can disagree with me. You can throw rocks at me if you want, but I think it is really better. And I'll talk more about that after we look at some examples. So let's first look at some examples of this. Now here's an obvious one. On the right we have O-U-R, 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 color, neighbor, favorite, honor, labor, flavor on the right. And then on the left, we have the American, color, neighbor, favorite, honor, labor, flavor. Same pronunciation. Well, I guess we could say generally the same pronunciation, although you might hear a British person say sometimes maybe color or labor. Maybe there's more of an sound. My British pronunciation is terrible, so I'm sorry about that. And maybe Americans tend to focus more on the R sound. Color, right? We tend to focus more on that. But notice that there's a missing U here. That's the reason I'm showing you this. So we take out the U from those words. Now, the interesting thing is you have to choose this when you set up your keyboard, when you're spelling things, when you're writing things. I think the international standard is now becoming American English. Because when I look around the world and I see documents and articles from around the world, I more often see the American spellings, which tells me that America is winning the language war, that American English is English 2.0, which means it's an update. Just my opinion. You can throw rocks at me if you want, but I really think that. I think it's more prevalent. You see it more often, the American spellings, because I think they're simpler. I set my keyboard to American English, but sometimes I see people spell things in the British English way. Fine, no problem. I mean, I don't care. Both are correct. But I do think the simpler way is just easier, more natural. Again, I'm very biased. I admit, I'm totally biased. Some more examples. The RE one. I really don't like the RE spelling. Meter, center, theater, fiber, leader, specter. American pronunciation. Same. Meter, center, theater, fiber, leader, specter. But the Americans do ER rather than RE. Now, which makes sense to you guys? If it's an sound, wouldn't you want to have the R at the end? Doesn't that make more sense? That makes more sense to me, right? We have the sound at the end. So to me, it's more logical. Again, I'm biased. I'm an American. So call me a silly American, but I really think it's better. This part of the discussion is really about how I like the spelling. Okay. Another example. The Z and the S. The Z and the S. So the British tend to use the S sound as a Z sound, and, for example, capitalize or colonize or symbolize or realize or recognize or civilize. And the Americans tend to use an actual Z. Why? Because the pronunciation is a Z sound. We say capitalize, colonize, symbolize. Because it's a Z, we often use a Z. Now, that doesn't mean that every time we say Z, we use a Z. No. It's just this ISE versus IZE piece of the word. Now, it's not true all the time. The interesting thing here is that, this is the thing that I think is very interesting, for the ER and RE ones, for the ER and the RE ones, the Americans are definitely winning, 100%. Because if you go over to England and you say, "Excuse me, British person, can you tell me how to spell the word December?" They will say, "Oh, just December." And you say, "Yes, that's right." And then you walk away. Because in England, the spellings of words are slowly changing to the American way. A lot of words that used to end with RE are becoming ER, and that's becoming standard. My theory, my hypothesis is that eventually all words will be spelled with ER instead of RE. Or, for example, COLOR instead of COLOUR. Now, why is that? Well, I think simplicity always wins. If you study the history of language around the world, you find something interesting. The simpler solution, the simpler way of doing it, always becomes the most popular. That's the reason that after Rome, the Roman Empire spread and started to get weaker, that these small local languages started to pop up. They were able to simplify some things from Latin and develop their own languages. Now we see Portuguese and Spanish and French pop out of this language of Latin, which is now dead, right? Now we see this interesting thing happening in America, where these words are simplifying, the pronunciation is changing. Those changes in, for example, spelling are becoming universal around the world, and even in the original country, they're also changing. For example, December, October, spelled ER. So I think of it more like an update, a natural step in the evolution of the language. And I think it's quite interesting. All right, let's look at one more example here. One more of these. So these are not exactly one-to-one. Right? So British people actually do say mum instead of mom. Americans say mom. British people say mum. And I think they call the queen mum, I believe. They say queen mum? They say, hey mum. I don't know. I've seen it in movies, so I don't know what they really do. But anyway, M-U-M, M-O-M. Aeroplane, airplane. British people actually say aluminium. Americans say aluminum. Mustache. Same pronunciation, just different spelling. Check. Now, tell me that that's not a crazy spelling of check. C-H-E-Q-U-E. C-H-E-C-K. Much simpler, right? And then whiskey and whiskey. I actually spell whiskey the British way sometimes, honestly, because, I don't know. It's one of those ones that can go either way. But the basic idea is, if you want to spell it the British way, that's fine. If you want to spell it the American way, that's fine. I just think the American way is becoming more and more popular around the world, maybe because of the influence of American businesses around the world, large corporations or maybe just the influence of media, articles, or whatever else. All right, guys, if you haven't already, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you subscribe, and also check out my courses in the links in the description. And also, if you want to see clips of the live streams, make sure you subscribe to the other channel so that you can check out those clips, which come out every single day. All right. See if I can catch up on some questions here. Any questions about spelling, British spelling? Gabe's 3D Videos says, that's actually my brother. My brother's watching this live stream. Oh, great. Why is library spelled library? That's a good question. I would say library is spelled library because the rednecks don't have enough guns. Or the toddlers don't have enough guns, maybe. Let me see here. Milton says, when to use ing after to. I think we talked about that in the last live stream, and so I don't want to take up everyone's time doing it again. So my suggestion would be to go to the Clips channel and watch that one. I don't want to be one of those guys who says no, but I already answered that one last time, and I don't want to answer the same question 2 live streams in a row. You know? Hey, Luke, says Art. Could you explain, please, what the word crusader means? Sharon's specials, they got 10 million views. She's a crusader. All right, I'll talk about that. Art always asks really good questions. I have to say, Art's questions are some of my favorites. I'll get back to it in a second. Edgar says, how do you speak in your daily day? That's a new one. My daily day. I mean, when you are speaking with another native speaker, show us an example, please. Show us, please, because I think now you're speaking clearer for us to understand you, right? Not that much. If you guys want to see how I really speak, actually, it's interesting that Gabe would show up here. There's a guy in the comments. His name is Gabe's 3D Videos. You can check out his channel. He makes 3D videos that are very cool. You can add him. But also, we do a podcast together. So if you want to see how I actually talk, it's not that different from this, I think. I might use a few other more complicated words sometimes, but it's not that different. And you can check out that. I think it's in the recommended channels on the Cloud English main page. It's called Gray Space, if you're interested. I wouldn't recommend watching, actually, the podcast episodes, but you can see how the discussion happens between me and another native English speaker. Please could you... Blah, 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 blah. Please could you... Gabe says, thanks for answering that. That helps. God bless. Wow. Great. Thanks, Gabe. My brother is trolling me. It's called trolling. He's trolling his own brother on a live stream. What about intonation and rhythm between American and British English? That's a tough one. I don't know that I'd be prepared to really give a good explanation about intonation and rhythm. There are lots of differences in pronunciation between American and British English, and it's just hard to say in a clear way what those specific differences are. The best thing to do is just listen to British English versus American English. Go and watch Downton Abbey, although that's very formal British English, or go and watch Sherlock, which is a great show, and then watch Stranger Things, and see if you can notice those differences between the pronunciation. Stranger Things, American kids. Sherlock, British people. Both of them are modern, but they speak in a very different way. Holmes is basically... Oh, I see. Homie. Are you sure you're spelling it right as Holmes, Anderson? And it's not Homes? When do you use... When do you use W between two words, please? Oh, okay. That's a good one. So the most... Actually, I'm going to pop this one up. Lolly asked a good question. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to talk about Art's question. Okay, so I'm going to answer Lolly's question and then I'm going to answer Art's question. And then I'm going to talk about memes. Let me drink some water. Sorry for the smacking sounds. All right. So Lolly says, when do you use linking W between two words? Oh, let me put this down here. When do you use linking W between two words? Lolly says. Now, the most common place to use the linking W between two words, and the one that we really probably need to talk about to make it clear, is between two words, the first one ends in O, and the second one begins with O. Okay? So, if we want to put those together, we have to add a tiny little W between them. So, for example, G-O and O-V-E-R. Now, if we put those together, we might say, if we just say O, we'll say go over, go over. We have to say O, right? But that doesn't sound natural. In fact, what we usually do is add a tiny little W between those two, and that allows us to blend them, to link them together, to move from one to the other, which is much more natural. So then we can say go over, go over. Now, we don't focus on that W. We don't really say go over, go over, go over there, right? But we do say go over there, go over there, go over there, go over there, go over there. So we are putting a little W there. It's just that we don't stress the W. We don't put the focus on the W, right? So that's the most common place to use that, right? We often use a Y, a tiny little Y to link words, if the end is maybe an E sound and the beginning of the next one is an E sound, right? Right, like he even. Instead of saying he even, we'll say he even. He even. There's a little Y there, right? All right, so we're linking those two together with a tiny little Y. This is called linking, and we can see the O, or the W and the Y as little links between them to allow the voice to flow naturally. And that's one of the things that makes English sound natural. One of the things that makes native English sound like it flows smoothly, right? Okay, but I want to say, you don't need linking letters like W and Y in order to make what you want to say flow smoothly. All you have to do is see where the voiced sounds are. Let's take the word neighbor. And we want to then add another word in front of it or after it, okay? Let's say my. Now, my is a voiced sound. E, we're using our voice, right? Sh, k, s. These are not voiced sounds. These are unvoiced sounds, right? We have voiced and we have unvoiced. If you want to know if something is voiced or it's unvoiced, you just put your finger right there and you go z, zh. Okay, all of those are voiced. Unvoiced, s, f, k, sh. Unvoiced. There's nothing vibrating here, right? Unvoiced. Okay. My neighbor. Can we link these together? Well, we don't have a linking letter there like W and Y, but we do have the voice. So we can just tell ourselves, all right, self, don't let the voice stop between two words which are voiced, especially if it's the end of one word that's voiced and the beginning of the next that's voiced. So, my neighbor, I didn't break my voice. My neighbor. Now notice for that one, there are no unvoiced sounds. So throughout that entire group of words, those two words together, there's no break. My neighbor, my neighbor. And if we add another word, is also voiced, right? My neighbor is, still no breaks, right? What about really? Really is completely voiced. My neighbor is really, right? What about old? Old is also completely voiced. My neighbor is really old. My neighbor is really old. Can we say it slowly? Will it still sound smooth? Let's try. My neighbor is really old. Now that sounds weird because I'm saying it so slowly, but that's the idea. If you want your sentences to flow more smoothly, don't try to speak more quickly, right? That's not the solution. Often there's this idea that, if I want my English to sound more smooth, I should speak fast. That's not right. I'm not speaking quickly. A lot of people don't speak quickly. The solution is to keep your voice on, unless there's a reason to stop it. Now, of course, there are places where you need to pause, right? Sometimes you'll say, my neighbor is really old. Okay, so sometimes that's necessary to do that. But if we continue the voice through words, it will dramatically improve your ability to sound natural. And then if you say something like, shh, like, we missed you at the party. Well, missed, both of those are unvoiced, the s and the t, unvoiced sounds, okay? So that's all you have to do. Practice that. Find where the links are between words where the voice is unbroken and practice reading them. Read out full sentences with unbroken sounds between words. Practice that rather than speaking quickly, and you'll find you develop a more fluent sound. Now, that doesn't mean you should focus on the links between them. You shouldn't say, my neighbor. Don't focus on it. But it should be there, and you should be able to put your fingers here and feel if your voice is continuing or not. And if you feel that, stop. Then that means it's not, and you're breaking the words up. That's a very common pronunciation issue. And if you just do that one thing, your flow will improve a lot. Your fluency will improve a lot, okay? By the way, guys, if you haven't already, make sure you hit the like button. Hit the like button for crying out loud. And also subscribe, and also check out my courses in the links in the description. Okay. All right, Lolly Lolly, I hope that answers your question. It's a good question. I like it. It's something I think is very important for English learners to understand better, and it's too bad that so many don't understand that basic idea. Does that answer your question, Lolly Lolly? I hope so. All right, now I said I was going to talk about Art's question, and then I really want to talk about memes, guys. I really want to talk about memes. I need more water. I need more coffee and more water. All right. Let's see if I missed anything. There's a website called Telephonics that shows you the phonetic transcription of any English word. Stay away from phonetic transcriptions. I hate phonetic transcriptions, and I don't think they're useful at all. They're terrible. There's another website called Speech University in Iowa that teaches you how to make every sound. A phoneme. It's phoneme. That's cool. As long as they don't do it with symbols. Symbols are bad. For example, when you do just cut out the Y sound. We often don't cut out the Y sound, though. Kook! I'm not kook. Lolly Lolly just called me kook. Oh, no. All right, Magda. See you next time. All right, guys. I'm going to answer Art's question, and then it's time to talk about memes. We got to talk about memes. I really want to talk about memes. All right. Here we go. Art's question. Hello, Luke. Could you explain, please, what the word crusader means here? Sharon's specials. They get 10 million viewers. She is a crusader. Okay. So first, we have to go back in history a little bit to understand the idea of a crusader. Now, a long time ago, in, I believe it was the 13th and 14th centuries, and maybe 15th as well, let's call it the Middle Ages, you have very powerful leaders of the Christian church. These guys are called popes, okay? Now, at this time, there was a lot of tension and conflict between the Catholic Church, which had become very powerful, and the Islamic groups in the Middle East and around Europe, okay? And so the popes would say throughout the years, sometimes, I need warriors and soldiers to destroy the enemy, people who believe something different, basically. That was the idea. Now, these different campaigns that happened over a period of several hundred years, these were called the Crusades. And the people who were on these crusades really thought they were doing something very good. They thought they were fighting for their belief, their faith, right? Their God. Now we look back and we say, all right, wow. We look back on that as a dark time, generally, right? People would kill innocent people and fight in wars just for their beliefs, just for their religion. Sounds a little wacky. But at the time, that's why it happened. And the people who were on these crusades, at the request or command of the Pope, they were called Crusaders. And these were years-long wars where many people died on both sides. And again, these campaigns were called Crusades. So when we talk about a crusader these days, we're not talking about someone going around killing people, but we are talking about someone who feels very strongly about their views and pushes them in the public sphere or the public domain. They support their views very strongly, and they will do whatever they can to get others to agree with them, to get support for their ideas, to really push, right? And so if someone has, for example, a cause, they believe that childhood poverty should be completely destroyed. We should end childhood poverty. We need to end it. They become a crusader for that because that's what they talk about. They wear T-shirts about that. They talk about it on news programs. They go on the internet and blog about it. They start a charity or a foundation. They are a crusader for ending childhood poverty. Okay? So often if someone has that strong viewpoint about something, that strong desire to make a change, and it's really in their heart, and they go above and beyond what is normal, not just donating to some charities, but they really go out there and they make their views known and they get other people to get on their team with them, and they do whatever they can. You will hear people call them crusaders. Nowadays, calling someone a crusader, like this person, is probably a good thing. This is someone who really cares about changing the world. Now, if we talk about the historical crusaders, often we're talking about that in a negative way. We say, oh, those crazy crusaders, right? Those people who were killing and going to war for their views, killing and going to war just because they thought they believed the right thing and the other people believed the wrong thing. All right, so that's the negative sense. But we do use it in a positive sense, and we can use the word crusade in a positive sense too. I'm on a crusade to end childhood poverty. I'm on a crusade to improve the world. I'm on a crusade to, well, usually improve the world is too general. What am I saying? That's way too general. I'm on a crusade to stop cruelty toward animals. Okay, so that's the kind of thing that you hear. Crusade, crusader. Generally positive. Still very strong words, both of them. Yeah. Hope that's clear. I hope that answers your question, Art. Edgar keeps talking about phonemes and symbols. Edgar, you're killing me. No. Why? Why, Edgar? Why? All right. Guys, it's time to talk about memes. It's time to talk about memes. All right. Are you ready? You guys ready to talk about memes? This is something I actually spent a lot of time preparing for. I spent a long time preparing for this. I'm excited. So you've heard about memes, right? You've heard about internet memes. Hopefully you'll understand this immediately, and I don't even need to explain that much, and we can just focus on the examples. But this is really important for understanding the Western brain, the English-speaking brain, I think. And, of course, everywhere in the world we have memes. But let's first define what it is, all right? So let's start with this. Why do memes matter? What is a meme exactly? And when we're talking about memes, are we just wasting our time, or are we really talking about something that can affect people, right? Well, I would say that, yes, memes are important. I would say that they're an important part of internet culture, and because they're an important part of internet culture, they are an important part of culture in general. But I think before we get into some examples, we should probably just define it. And there are actually two general definitions. These are actually the formal definitions of meme. So we have number one, an element of a culture or system of behavior that may be considered to be passed from one individual to another by non-genetic means, especially imitation. So now there's a book, and the book is called The Selfish Gene by an author named Richard Dawkins, who is a biologist. And he developed this idea of a gene, G-E-N-E, or rather a meme, M-E-M-E, based on a gene. A gene is the genetic or DNA unit that passes from one to another, from parent to child. Whereas a meme is a kind of also unit, but passes from person to person, and it's a cultural transmission. So you see me do something, and then you say, oh, that's cool, and then you do the same thing, and that spreads. A meme could be teaching someone how to make a paper airplane. A meme could be an idea that a parent teaches their child. A system, maybe of beliefs, or a system of memes. So that's the kind of evolution meaning. That's the meaning in culture. But then we have the internet meaning, and it's definitely related to this meaning, but it's more specific. Okay, it's a specific form of meme that has become popular, and it's what people usually mean when they say meme. Mean and meme, different, right? So the other definition is a humorous image, video, piece of text, etc., that is copied, often with slight variations, and spread rapidly by internet users. Okay. So, what's that? Well, I'm sure that you've been on Instagram and seen the same picture appear many times. I'm sure that you've been on Twitter or somewhere online and seen Baby Yoda or something like that. Why is Baby Yoda everywhere? From the show The Mandalorian, right? That's a very popular meme recently. And you'll see the same picture, but maybe different words on the picture each time. This kind of thing, these pictures that you see everywhere, especially these common pictures that you see everywhere, these are called memes. And they're a very important part of internet culture because it's a way to share an idea. It's a way to share something between people. We all know what this Baby Yoda, for example, represents, and the words that someone puts on it is a new way to express that general idea. So the meme is this generally understood meaning behind this specific picture, and everybody knows, who's on the internet, knows what the general meaning is. But then we look at each person's version of that, and that's what makes us laugh. It's sort of like a modern day joke. Now we don't tell jokes so much anymore. Instead, we share memes. We make memes, right? So let's look at the sort of evolution of memes. The early internet memes started with a few pictures. There actually weren't that many, and they were very famous and kind of everywhere on the internet. You saw the same ones. So we're going to look at a few of the old memes, the early memes, the traditional memes, and then we'll look at how memes have evolved into the modern day. So back in, let's say, 2009 or 2010, you would have seen something like this on the internet. Now, this is a specific meaning. This picture, it has to be this one. You can't have another picture. Well, actually, there was another version of this, but this was the picture. Now, this meme is no longer popular, but now we have a bunch of other ways to express the same thing. It was very popular probably in 2000, maybe around 2010 and a little bit later. This one is called First World Problems. It's a lady crying, and she's crying because of some inconvenience. But it's an inconvenience that someone who has a lot of money feels, right? Someone who is crying because something has gone wrong in her day. But actually, she doesn't appreciate that she probably has a very lucky life and doesn't have to struggle. And so her struggles seem terrible to her. That's why we call it first world problems. Third world problems, finding food, surviving, right? Getting water. First world problems, my plate is full of food and I'm not at the end of the buffet line yet. That's a first world problem, right? I want to get more food, but I've put too much food on my plate, right? So this is something that a person who is privileged would feel sad about and cry about. And this picture sort of captures it perfectly. Again, you don't really see this meme anymore. This is an older meme. I'm just kind of giving you a history of memes. I'm hungry, but I already brushed my teeth. This is definitely a first world problem, right? Again, it's an old meme, but you could put a billion different little inconvenient things there on top of this picture, and that's what you would see online kind of a long time ago, okay? Another one, Success Kid. Actually a really famous one. Again, you don't see this anymore, but you would see a lot of these. I just brought a quick example, which is, I farted in an enclosed area. They blame the person beside me. So a Success Kid, the basic idea of Success Kid was a small victory in life. Yes, it's sort of like that yes feeling, and that's it. And you would share something with the text. You'd change the text on the top and bottom, and notice the background. For some reason, during that brief period of time, we had those weird shapes in the background. I don't know why, but that was popular for a while. And you would get it immediately. Oh, I've experienced that. So this person farted, and they blame the other person. Right? We understand that immediately. We can appreciate that, yes, small victory in life. So this is to express these small victories. Now, the other one is actually the real story behind it. So this one, made enough money from this meme to fund my dad's kidney transplant. This kid got a little older, and somehow this kid was able to make money from this specific meme. This baby grew up, right, and was able to make enough money to pay for his dad's kidney transplant. So he succeeded as well because of the meme. I think his dad got kidney disease and had to get a transplant and couldn't afford it. And so I don't know how he got money from the meme, but somehow he did. Maybe it was a campaign or something. I'm not sure, but sort of the end of the story. He's probably, I don't know, 15 years old or maybe more. These are old memes. These are old memes. Let's look at one more. We have Scumbag Steve here. Scumbag Steve. This is a guy who doesn't care about you, and he will do anything to get exactly what he wants. If he promises something to you, he will never live up to his promise. He will only do what is in his own interest. And he's not very intelligent, and maybe not the real person, right? But just the picture. This is the idea behind the picture. This is the common idea. Hey, can I borrow everything? This is the person who always asks to borrow things and maybe never gives it back. Don't worry, bro. I'll pay you next week. Maybe not, but the idea is this person is always taking, and never giving back, or maybe never living up to their responsibilities. Again, we're not talking about this person. There is a real person behind the picture, but that's not what we're focused on. We're focused on expressing a commonly understood idea. And the commonly understood idea is someone who is ungrateful and self-interested. For Success Kid, the commonly understood idea is small victory. For first world problems, the commonly understood idea is, oh, my life is so inconvenient, but I'm still privileged, right? For shut up and take my money, there's another picture where you see something that's really cool and you post, shut up and take my money, as if to say, I'm desperate to get this. But it always is slightly changed, the text, the way that it's presented, because that's what a meme is. You're taking the basic idea and doing 1,000 versions of that, and it's sort of including people in a club that all know what that general meaning is, and then we can all laugh about the different versions, the different variations. All right, so that's That's the old school meme. That's the old style of internet meme. Those are early memes. But now we're in a very different place where I would say we do have those common things that everybody knows, but now they change very quickly. You don't have these classic single memes like Success Kid, except maybe Baby Yoda. Baby Yoda is very popular right now and probably will be for a while. But generally speaking, a meme is kind of whatever now. A picture from a TV show, a screenshot from a TV show, labeled, or a tweet, just a picture of a tweet that's shared. Maybe you put a picture of a tweet above another picture. So now it's sort of totally open. And there are so many different variations that we have to get the meaning from knowing the source, or knowing the idea, or understanding the facial expression, or getting the situation somehow through what we see, and then maybe doing our version of it, or sharing it, or whatever. So I want to look at a couple of versions of newer memes. Okay, so let's look at this. Oops, that's Scumbag Steve. Why do I want to see Scumbag Steve again? All right, so here is something that we can all understand, even if we're not sure what it comes from, right? You could have the picture of this kid with his cat with the gun, and you could put any title above it. So often now, instead of having the whole picture of Success Kid or something like that, you'll see this picture and then above it white space. And people can take that and do whatever they want with it. They can put their own title above it. And often you'll see when to say, this is what I feel in this sort of situation. When someone starts getting along with your pet too well, right? I don't like that. But you could delete that and you could replace it with your own meaning. The reason that there's that white bar above it is because people will do many different versions of this meme. They'll take that same picture of this guy with his cat and they'll put their own title above it. So it's the same idea. Now it's just a little bit more refined. It's not so simple. And there are many, many more of them, right? There are thousands and thousands of memes now rather than just a few that everybody knows. The other one then is, again, an idea we can all understand when you're eating lunch with your boss and he says, "Don't worry, I got the bill." And this facial expression, even if we don't know what this comes from, I don't know what it comes from, but I immediately understand the idea. This person is saying, well, yeah, sort of as if to say, you're my boss, you have a lot more money than me. If you weren't paying for lunch, that would be insane, right? Of course you're paying for it. So it's sort of that awkward feeling of needing to say, oh, thanks so much for treating me to lunch. But if you didn't treat me to lunch, that would be very weird. So, well, yeah, sort of like that's obvious. And I've seen lots of variations of that one as well. I don't even know what it's from. So there the common idea is, I know the, well, yeah thing. I know what that means. This is an obvious thing. It's expressing in a funny way. Of course, yes, that's obvious. But we could do 1,000 different variations of that. So this is one that's still pretty popular. A picture from whatever, TV show, whatever this is, I don't know what it's from, and then a caption above it, or a when above it, which people will do different variations on. For some reason, SpongeBob is very memeable. There are so many SpongeBob memes where people will take a picture of SpongeBob from SpongeBob, the show, a screenshot from SpongeBob, and there are tons of them. You can search SpongeBob memes, and then there will be a caption above it, or someone will add words on top of SpongeBob. And there are some really popular ones, and probably 1,000 different screenshots of SpongeBob's various expressions. And now I think Baby Yoda is becoming a little more popular than SpongeBob, but they're both very, very popular. All right, let's look at some more. Now this is just pictures of tweets. Nowadays, one of the ways to do memes is to take a picture of tweets, or take a tweet and then put it above a picture, or take a picture of a conversation, what's called a Twitter thread, and take a screenshot of the whole thing, and then maybe have a comment under it, and just share that. And that is considered to be a meme as well. So one of the famous people doing this is Papito. He does He does very funny memes. For example, he says, can you imagine how hot I'd be if I ate right and took care of my body? I'm not going to do that, but you can imagine. That's funny, right? It's funny. And can't believe that as a child, Grease had me thinking these people were teenagers. This is a movie called Grease, which is very famous. And in the movie are these people in these pictures. They're obviously 30 years old, but they were supposed to be teenagers in the movie, which is kind of ridiculous. Kind of ridiculous. Do you say Caribbean or Caribbean? I say Caribbean, but I pronounce Pirates of the Caribbean the other way. Or you could say, I say Caribbean, but I say Pirates of the Caribbean the other way. Again, are these exactly memes? Well, they're considered memes because they're screenshots of tweets of popular things, but you could also say they're just ways to share information around. So this one, we might not do a variation of it, but we might just like it, or we might share it somewhere with our friends, right? It's just a funny thing. So now pictures of tweets are becoming really popular. But now we get into the memes that are, I think, the sort of the latest version of memes. So we've gone from the early memes, scumbag Steve, first world problems, shut up and take my money, to common pictures with a heading on top of them, from whatever, to pictures of tweets. And again, those are still common, pictures of tweets and the other one. But now we're going into pictures that are actually just labeled. So instead of having a caption on top of the picture, you will see a label on the picture itself. And this is expressing something even more subtly. And there are lots of versions of this. I'm sure you've seen the most famous one. I think it's the most famous, probably, of the boy with his girlfriend. And there's a boy with his girlfriend walking away from the camera. And then there's another girl walking toward the camera. And then the boy is turned around looking at the girl who's walking toward the camera, even though he's with his girlfriend. And then they just label the different people different things. And you can express an idea. So as a basic picture, the boy is looking at the other girl because maybe she looks good, right? Even though he's with his girlfriend. How else could we talk about this? Well, maybe we're talking about brands. Maybe you label yourself, the man, as me, and you often use me in these memes. And then the one that you're with, the girlfriend, you'll label as, I don't know, let's any brand. Let's say PlayStation 4. And then this is a stupid example, but it's just because I don't have a better one in my head. Then the girl walking toward the camera maybe is if some new console comes out, right? Maybe Nintendo Switch comes out with a new version or something like that. It's not that funny, but expresses the idea that I'm no longer loyal to this thing. I'm excited about this new thing that's walking toward the camera. And some of them are very funny. Some of them are not funny. My example is not funny at all. But some of them are very, very funny. And I'm sure you've seen that one before. And the cool thing about these memes, I think, is because you really don't need to know anything special. With Success Kid, those old memes, you had to be in the club. But now I think you don't need to be in the club as much because they're so simple. They're just labeled with basic words. And you see the picture, you see what the people are doing in the picture. You can understand what's going on from the picture. You don't need to know where it's from. You don't need to know the context. You understand what's going on in the picture, and the labels add meaning to that and the variations of that, right? The same with the cute baby Yoda looking up at someone. I see a cute baby Yoda is like a little child. So then the label is maybe me when my mom comes back from work with McDonald's, and there's a cute baby Yoda looking up at someone, my mom, whatever it is, right? To say, this is how excited I was when I was a kid about getting McDonald's food. Again, that's not a funny example, but I'm just trying to express the idea of now memes are kind of global, whereas before I think they weren't, and they were more inside of each each culture. So let's look at some other examples of these more modern memes. All right, so we just label stuff. We have this this pink guy who's obviously looking at someone who's threatening. Bane from the third Batman movie is very threatening, very scary. And this guy is walking out in a pink suit like, you don't threaten me, and he's going in the face of the very, very threatening person. Supposed to be productive, 14 beers on Friday night. So I'm supposed to work all day on Saturday and do a lot of things, but because I had 14 beers on Friday, that is going against, bravely and brashly going against my plan to be productive on Saturday, as if to say, I don't care about your plans. It's a ridiculous man in a suit. And you could put anything there. It's like undermining that thing. It's saying, now what you want is ridiculous, and it goes in the face of that thing. Now, recently, there's this meme of Nancy Pelosi ripping up Donald Trump's speech, but you can put whatever you want there, right? As I said, usually something is labeled me, and then you can label the paper. What is that? It's a recipe I found on the internet. I'm not going to read it, right? So I just rip it up and I just do whatever I want to do. This expresses an idea, but you could put in whatever you want there. You could put in, I don't know, maybe a letter that you got from someone giving you feedback, and you don't care about their feedback, so you show yourself ripping the feedback up. That's the idea. Recently, Donald Trump has this ridiculous picture of his face paint, because he paints his face with heavy makeup, and the wind was blowing, and it blew his head back, or his hair back, and so it made this sort of circle effect on his face. So this is just a visual meme. You don't even need to have words on this one. This is where memes are going, where we don't even need words anymore, right? That's not really where Donald Trump was. He wasn't really standing behind a fence where a man is staining the fence. He's not actually standing behind a fence that's being painted orange. And there's not really a hole in the fence. But if we Photoshop Donald Trump there, then it's sort of like explaining why his face is this color. And there are many other than Photoshopped memes of why Donald Trump's face is orange and there's a circle around his face. People do funny things like this. And I think it's cool that there are fewer and fewer words so that they become more universal. All right, let's look at one more. Horse, did I win? Many ribbons. That's a basic one. This, after the Oscars, this Brad Pitt one is becoming pretty popular. Me drunk at 3 a.m., my half-eaten burrito. So he's looking at it like, I'm about to eat more of this burrito. And you could label that any way you like. I really love the third one. 8 p.m., 1 beer? 8 p.m., all right, 1 beer. 4 a.m., one person carrying the other home because they've had way too many beers, right? And these clips are from Lord of the Rings, so it makes it more dramatic because they're climbing up a fire mountain. It makes it more extreme. And then the last one, you could say someone who is a brown noser or a kiss ass, kissing up to their manager, someone who is always saying, "Oh, you look so handsome today," or "You look so nice today," or "Oh, you're so smart," who is trying to get favor from their boss. So I think that's a pretty funny one. And these are just a few simple examples, but I wanted to give you a feeling about how English memes have evolved from where they were 10 years ago to now, and they will continue to evolve. I really like memes. I think they are a way to tell jokes visually, right? It used to be that jokes are things that you tell each other, right? You tell your friend a joke. Now we tell jokes with pictures and basic ideas that we all understand simply, and we do variations of those jokes to show our individuality, so we can share something collectively and still have our individual contribution, funny contribution or whatever, individually. And that's what makes it really interesting. And again, the more memes develop, it seems like the more universal they become, so that now we need to know less and less about American culture or British culture or whatever culture. We can just see it and laugh immediately. We don't need to know much else about it. We just need to read, label, ha ha ha. That's it. Okay, so those are memes. And if you have memes to share, let me know. If you have questions about this, let me know in the comments. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe. And don't forget to check out my courses in the links in the description. And that's it. Yeah, memes are funny. I agree. Wow, I'm going to go back and see if I missed anybody's comments here. My voice is starting to give out, guys. We're going to have to stop pretty soon because I'm losing my voice. I've been talking for 2 hours. Hello, Foxy Brown. Cool name. Nowadays, anybody at any given moment can become a meme in the social media world. That's right. If you guys want to follow a good memer, there's a guy on Instagram, and his name is Shithead Steve. Shithead Steve. Actually, okay, there are 2 places to get memes. 2 places I get memes. One is called iwastesomuchtime.com. iwastesomuchtime.com. And the other, let me type it for you. Okay, so that's a good one. That's a good place to get memes. And also this one. His name is Shithead Steve, and I think you have to follow him on Instagram. So if you follow him on Instagram, Shithead Steve, he's got some great memes. You can check those out. Very funny, very funny. Donald Trump is a walking meme. I would agree with that 100%. 100%. All right. Yeah, if you guys want to share memes, you can join the Facebook group. On the Facebook group, I share memes sometimes. You guys can share funny memes. That would be a cool thing. There's a link to the Facebook group in the description. If you guys want to join the Facebook group, do that. All right, guys, I'm losing my voice. We're gonna have to call it for today. Thank you all so much for joining. Thanks for all your really good questions. I hope I answered all of them. If I missed any, make sure you ask next time. Leave your questions in the comments of videos. I check all the comments, so leave your questions wherever, and I will try to pick a couple good ones out for next week to prepare for. And don't forget to join us next Sunday. All right, next Sunday at probably the same time. Again, guys, like button, please. Would appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe. If you want to check out the clips that I post every day from these live lessons, if you go to the Cloud English main page, you'll see English lessons by Cloud English, and those are basically, I'll cut out sections of the live lessons as clips in case you don't want to watch the whole big thing, right? Or you missed one. I just want to make sure everyone can get the benefit of seeing the different questions answered. So you can subscribe to that second channel as well and see clips. I'm going to be posting clips every single day. So there should be a clip coming out in a couple hours from the last week's stream. See you guys next time. Oh, and they're doing a sale on the Udemy courses, so check out the Udemy courses in the link in the description because they are doing a sale. All right, Xiaoli, Rolfie, Lolly Lolly, everybody else, see you guys later. Have a good one.